Okay, so welcome back to the Zoom room. Kim, nice to see you again for another
Me too.
Letting Go live session. So let's dive into today's quote to kick it off. We'll some bit of teaching around forgiveness. That'll lead us nicely into today's lesson, and maybe we'll have time to do the insert on what is the second coming. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Okay, so if you can read the quote.
There I
Read the quote
understood
to
everything.
oh,
There I understood everything was the day I stopped trying to figure everything out. The day I knew peace was the day I let everything go.
yeah, a lovely quote by an American poet and author called Joybell C. That's her, obviously her pen name. States the relationship between letting go of our own understanding of life and peace of mind very clearly. The day I knew peace was the day I let everything go. So the workbook lessons, the text, and the whole course, really, Course in Miracles, are designed to bring about just this undoing of your own, in other words, your separate self's understanding of absolutely everything. So you can open your mind to the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of everything you think you understand. Now, this process, which Yeshua calls forgiveness in the Course in Miracles, we call letting go in alternative language, will inevitably help you feel more peaceful. But be sure that you're truly forgiving or letting go, which means that you're not trying to pardon sins that you think are real, but merely recognizing their unreality from the start, as Yeshua explains in this passage from section 6 of chapter 30 in the text entitled Justification for Forgiveness. So if you can read that.
Sin is always justified. It has a sure foundation. You do not let go of what is impossible to let go of, nor overlook a real attack that calls for punishment. Awakening does not lie in being asked to make unnatural responses that are inappropriate to what is real. Instead, it merely asks that you respond appropriately to what is not real by not perceiving what has not occurred.
So as he's saying in the quote, pardon is always justified because what you're pardoning is unreal and so hasn't really happened. That's the basis for it. The recognition of its unreality. So you need only recognize the unreality of all error to practice radical forgiveness or letting go, which simply overlooks all apparent sins that it then sees as ephemeral errors that don't really exist. So therefore, radical forgiveness helps you correctly perceive that there's really nothing to forgive, and it restores your mind to an awareness of its true nature as unconditional love, which by definition doesn't acknowledge any conditions for love to occur. On the other hand, the ego's plan for forgiveness always makes errors real and permanent in your perception, which is the definition of sin, and it just means that the errors cannot be overlooked. So that leads to the ego's perception that completely pardoning someone's plainly visible sins is impossible self-deception, and the options that it offers instead of radical forgiveness are pseudo-forgiveness. Yeshua also calls it forgiveness to destroy, So as the pious person in the right, you self-righteously pardon the sinner because that's what a quote good person should do. Right? A lot of particularly religious people, Christians who supposedly saying they're practicing forgiveness. So it's just saying, well, actually, I'm in the right. I'm more pious because I go to church several times a week, and you're some kind of miserable sinner, and I'll pray for you. But really, they're perceiving that person is a sinner, and they're somehow beneath them. So there's no real letting go of forgiveness there. It's just pseudo or what Yeshua calls forgiveness to destroy in the Song of Prayer. Compassionate forgiveness is to try and understand the person did the best they could given their state of consciousness at the time and try hard not to judge them for their mistake. So this is the thought says, well, they did their best. They're having a tough time at the moment. They've had a difficult life. They've had bad childhood, and so they're acting that way because of their conditioning, because of their past conditioning. Which softens the judgment a bit. It's not as condemnatory, but both of these approaches miss the mark of radical forgiveness for different reasons, and so they won't work to free you from all suffering. So the first approach I call pseudo-forgiveness because it's really judgment and condemnation masquerading as forgiveness, designed to reinforce the separate and superior identity of the person bestowing the forgiveness without any genuine intent on his or her part to let go of the judgment and condemnation. So it's not really forgiveness at all, which always entails a letting go of the negative thought and emotion in the mind of the person forgiving, but it's just judgmental condemnation. You're saying you're a sinner, you're bad, you're evil, and that's the way I perceive you. So very separative. Because healing happens through the unification of seemingly separate minds, pseudo forgiveness can't ever heal anyone, but rather it reinforces their separate self's identity in the minds of both the person who's pseudo forgiving and the person on whom the pseudo forgiveness is bestowed, as the imagined superiority of the person pseudo forgiving over the quote sinner will be strengthened in their mind, while the sinner will sense that they're really being condemned by the other person. They'll usually react to the pseudo forgiving person based on their supposed guilt in a defensive, angry, or fearful way, which also strengthens their false self-concept of being a guilty sinner and their sense of being separate from the pseudo forgiver. So we know that dynamic very well. Someone condemns you, you feel judged, and you feel defensive. Right? And often you get angry in response, and then you want to attack them, and that increases the separation in your own mind. And both of you get into a conflict like that, feel very separate and apart from each other. So that's what pseudo forgiveness just perpetuates. So there's no real healing, there's no at-one-ment that comes about from it, which is why Yeshua calls it forgiveness to destroy. So it's pretty easy to see that pseudo forgiveness is false. It's never going to work to free anyone's mind from sin and guilt. But you may not be so convinced about the second type of forgiveness the ego engages in, which I call compassionate forgiveness. So you might say, well, what's wrong with compassion? It's quite a spiritual quality. And in many teachings, they say compassion is the highest, the highest path. Buddhist teaching puts quite a lot of emphasis on loving kindness, compassion. The Course calls it not compassion, but empathy. But actually, it means empathy in a different way from how I've used compassion here, which I'll explain. So this is where the ego, which remember is just your belief in separation and your related belief in the reality of your separate self, gets pretty devious and cunning, because on the surface of it, this seems to be perfectly reasonable. Yeah, I'm compassionate. I'm seeing that person's difficulty, their pain. I'm acknowledging it. I'm not judging them overtly. I'm not condemning them. But if you scratch just a little bit below that seemingly shiny surface or that thin veneer, you'll see that beneath it lies the same rusted core that characterizes all egoic beliefs, which are all false. So you might say, well, how so? How does that work? Because compassionate forgiveness still assumes whatever seemingly happened to upset you has in fact really happened. And so you've made it real. And now its negative effects in your mind must be mitigated by trying to understand why the other person did what they did, which assumes that he or she really did do it. And it makes the situation and the characters participating in it real to the compassionate forgiver, you will then still have a sense of being a separate person, living in a hostile world, trying and struggling to forgive what is seemingly unforgivable. So even though the compassionate forgiver is trying to lessen the negative impact of the seeming offense in their mind, which is a step in the right direction, they still believe the offense was really committed, then the world and their separate identity operating in it remain real to them. So compassionate forgiveness is really a halfway house between pseudo-forgiveness and the true or radical forgiveness that Yeshua teaches in the Course, which he summarizes beautifully in today's quote. So it's a good starting point, but it will not take you all the way home to the transcendent dimension of reality. Yeshua calls the kingdom of heaven, because it still makes the world and the sense of separate self, that is the ego, real in your mind. Okay? So is that clear? What compassionate forgiveness is, and why it's not the ultimate radical forgiveness.
Yes.
Okay, good. So radical forgiveness, on the other hand, gets to the root of the problem. Radix is the Latin word from which the word radical is derived, and it just means root. So it simply denies that anything other than pure formless awareness of perfect love is real. Right? So the problem is we've invented a false self, we've invented a false world. All of that seems to be very real to us. And to get to the root of the problem, we must deny the world and we must deny the self that made it. It's the only way out. So radical forgiveness is that denial of the false self and the false world that it made up. So if any word, action, or behavior that's seemingly been said or done is unloving, this radical forgiveness says it's unreal and it has no real existence or effects. This is the Holy Spirit's perfect logic. It cancels out all errors and helps you recognize that you and the seeming, quote, other person you're forgiving are not and never have been separate. Right? It cancels it all out, says we're actually the same, we're actually one. None of this, nonsense, this charade, this illusion, this dream, whatever you want to call it, is reality. So none of it matters, none of it at all. And it has to be complete. You can't say, well, a little bit of it matters and then some of it doesn't, because it's all in the same order of realities. So radical forgiveness says, no, it's all a dream. So let it go. So only radical forgiveness with the help of the Holy Spirit, which remember is just the remembrance of perfect unconditional love in your mind, will return your mind to the state of unconditional love, in which you realize that you and everyone and everything else that seems to have a separate form in this world are really one and the same, pure, formless awareness of perfect love. Okay? So the outcome of forgiveness is the realization of oneness, that we are all the same, we share the same mind, we share the same awareness, and there really is no separation and no differences. Those are all illusory. So that brings us nicely to the session where we talked about these three levels of forgiveness. So just to summarize, it's the pseudo or forgiveness to destroy, which isn't forgiveness at all. It's just false, completely spurious. Compassionate forgiveness, which softens the judgment, says, I'm not going to condemn you so much because I understand that you've had a tough time, but nevertheless, I make it real. And then radical forgiveness says, no, actually, none of it's real. So why are you even bothering? Why judge it at all? Because it's simply not true. And so that collapses the whole dream. Radical forgiveness, if you do it systematically and progressively over time, just collapses the whole dream. All the characters in the dream, none of them are true or real. So they fade away and they die and are undone. And then what's left after radical forgiveness is the truth of who you really are. So you just need to keep doing that, keep radically forgiving or letting go, and the truth of who you are will reveal itself. Your true self, Christ nature, reveals itself. We have a look at the Holy Trinity again. Did this earlier. The more you forgive, the more you correct your perceptions, the more you identify with the true self. And the stronger that gets, the more this pure formless awareness of perfect love that underlies it is present in your mind.
Yeah, and I think then you can let it dissociate from the unreal self. Because when you, as that gets
Yeah,
stronger, right? Because it's
yeah.
the one's like, well, okay, conceptually I'm told this is not real, but
Hmm,
where is
hmm.
the reality then? Because I'm not feeling it much.
So the reality starts arising more. Initially, you won't because your
Mm.
mind is put itself into this box, the red box of a separate self, and believing it's in a body and that all the experiences in time and space are real. So they're very attached to that experience, and it doesn't know how to transcend that experience on its own. So
Mm.
what's required is another awareness. This other awareness has to come in as your true self, and then that true self or Christ perceives correctly from the perspective of oneness and says, okay, so you've had a trauma, you've had something happen that was unpleasant, someone's done something to you, maybe said something, but remember from the perspective of oneness that none of this is true. So it's just unreal. The character of this other person or people is unreal. The figures in the dream are unreal. Your own separate self is unreal. None of it's true. It's just these characters dancing around in a dream that's all made up. And then that perspective then brings a lot of comfort and a lot of peace in the dream. You can then, looking at from this perspective, you have a trauma, but you can then flow forward because you've gone into this higher awareness. You can now bring that some of that awareness into your perception. That's why it's a double-sided arrow. You go up and then you come back down. You bring this awareness back down, and that undoes the ego. So you've had a little victory, you've undone the trauma, and then you flow forward in a very different way. To give you an example, I mentioned I was watching the British Sports Awards yesterday. I didn't see this part, but Deborah told me about it. There was a guy whose son, 13-year-old son, very promising, talented footballer at the time, had been stabbed to death. Right, so that's a major, trauma forgiveness lesson. Wow, like one moment my son is in my life, and then suddenly he's
Mm.
gone, and I'm burying him, and then the anger, the rage, the guilt, maybe well, what could I have done differently to save him? All of that comes up. This guy then dedicated himself to helping kids who were in underprivileged areas to learn football. And he channeled all of that pain into something constructive, into like, well, let me serve and try and make sure. I don't know the circumstances, but maybe his son was in a dodgy area. Who knows? I don't know how it happened, but try and
Mm.
ensure that that doesn't happen to other kids by giving them something else to do than crime and drugs and stuff. And so that's what he channeled his energy into, and that trauma then became the catalyst for his higher purpose in the
Mm.
world and the giving and the extending of love, because he'd obviously gone into this awareness and done some forgiveness and gone, okay, I could either be really bitter and angry about this for the rest of my life and feel that I've lost something that's incredibly precious, and oh poor me that I've lost my son, and I could tell myself that story, or I could let all of those negative thoughts and emotions go, and I can channel my thoughts and my time and my energy, um, and direct them towards a higher purpose of giving and extending love into a world that needs it in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily done if my son hadn't been stabbed to death. So your greatest point of pain, your greatest trauma is also your within that seed of pain and suffering and seeming disaster and death in this case lies the seed of your awakening and your highest purpose in this world. And it's just to learn that lesson. You know, it's not easy, especially a trauma like that. That is a, you know, very, very, for most people, it'd be a very, very difficult lesson to learn, but it can be learned. There are people who have, you know, in these extreme situations done that. There was another Muslim guy, also same thing. His son was a bit older, in his 20s, got stabbed to death. And he forgave publicly in a courthouse. He forgave the attacker who was being tried. And he said, I'm really sorry for you that you have to go through this. And there was genuine empathy. It was amazing. And he hugged him. He hugged the murderer of his
Yeah,
son in court. I mean,
yeah.
that's just phenomenal, unconditional love. That's just, you know, that's forgiveness. He's obviously gone into this self, this awareness very deeply, got over the trauma and the pain and the anger, you know, the desire for revenge and anger, and said, actually, you know, there's no point in that. I'm just going to give love to now this young black kid who is going to spend the rest of his life in prison because of what he did, who obviously is feeling guilty. He's feeling, well, I've screwed up my life. You know, what do I have ahead of me in life? But years in prison, you know. And he's like, I'm sorry that you have to experience this, because it's obviously not, even though you've killed my son, you know, some people would say, well, you know, you deserve it. I remember watching one, it was an American program called, it was about New York City police. And it was really moving. Was this guy came in. He was a killer, but he had a schizophrenia, so he'd been on the right medication, and so he killed this girl's parents 20 years before, and she still had the trauma, and he came in and he tried to apologize. He said, "Look, I'm really really sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. I was not in my right mind. I didn't know about my condition, and you know, I'm really sorry. Can you forgive me?" And she was like, "No, I will never forgive you. You deserve to die." It was just like, okay, you know, you've hung on to the pain and the anger for 20 years. When are you going to let it go? And the cop was sort of trying to broker some kind of reconciliation, and it just wasn't happening because the lady wouldn't forgive. She was just like, "I just want you to die like they did." But that's just, well, do you think more death is going to solve the problem?
Hmm.
You know, more hatred, more anger, more death, more condemnation is going to solve the problem. You know, no, only love's going to
Oh,
solve the
the
problem.
problem though, take away the pain. I mean, what's the
Yeah.
problem that you think it
Well,
might solve?
her problem was, well, I'm still in grief over my parents, and I still have all this anger at what you did, that you took them away from me, and I can't forgive you for that. So, you know, her problem is a perceptual problem. Well, more hatred and more anger is not going to solve the problem. Those are the problem. You have to let go of those and ask for divine love and say, you know, there is a source of love in this world that's transcendent. And you have to go into that to find what else can you do in these seemingly horrific situations. You know, it's this, you either stay in hell, which is pain, suffering, misery, hatred, guilt, fear, sin, and so on, or you let it go. And only this divine love can help you do that. Only the unconditional love of God in those situations is going to work. The radical forgiveness, in other words, only that's going to work. No other source of supposed love is going to work. So when people get tested like that to the highest extreme, then there's also a profound lesson if they choose to learn it. In your greatest point of pain, it also lies your the seed of your awakening and of your highest purpose in this world. And if we can just remember that at the time that it's happening, as difficult as it may seem, then there's the grace, there's the salvation in that situation to remember that. So go from this perspective, all things work for good. Now, that's quite a challenging line in the Course. All things, no matter what, work for good. Okay, so the murder of my son works for good. Wow. But it does if you allow that miracle to happen and you step out the way and you're willing to let go of your pain and your suffering and your grievances. Okay, so where are we? Let's have a look at say an hour. So let's have a look at today's lesson then, shall we? So where are we? We want lesson number down here somewhere. Let's go there, see if I can find it on here. Thought I had it up. There we go, lesson 305. Okay. Have we got time to do what is the second coming? It's 5 paragraphs, or
I think let's just go straight into lesson and meditation, Donna. Sorry, I'm just a little bit.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean it's well after it's 10 there almost, so
Yeah.
understandable. All right, so lesson 305. Actually just read the read the summary. That's a good idea. Just to read the summary of the what is the second coming. And just give you the short and sweet summary.
Okay. My true self's second coming is the correction of all mistakes and the return to sanity, restoring what was never lost. It invites perfect love's message to replace all my illusions, asks me to let go of all my attachments to this world. Its all-encompassing nature embraces all sentient beings, offering limitless release and revealing perfect oneness to me.
Yeah, so
I think it's about the correction of mistakes and letting go and replacing what is unreal with what's
wow.
true,
So
my true self.
if we go back here to the Holy Trinity diagram, it's this process, the second coming. Is this awakening process that's going on in our minds is the second coming. And that's an ongoing process in time that helps you replace your illusions with the truth of perfect oneness. So you start accessing this awareness as the true self. Say, I realize I'm really one self. If I forgive someone, I'm really just letting go of my negative thoughts and emotions about them, because those are false. They're false. That's what forgiveness means. And I'm connecting with my true self again. So forgiveness is just letting go of your own negative misperceptions. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. It's that simple. When you forgive someone, you're really just letting go of your own negative thoughts and emotions about them, so that you once again become aware of the true self. And the ego tries to cloud this over and say, no, forget all this. Just go into your misperceptions and believe in the fear and the guilt and the sin and the attack and the death and whatever's being shown to you in the ego's dream as real. And then you forget who you are. You forget the true self and you forget this awareness. And that's its only goal. Okay, so the next one, the second coming concludes the lessons.
The second coming concludes the lessons of the remembrance of perfect love and prepares the way for the last judgment, where all minds are united in my true self's identity and return to pure formless awareness of perfect love. It transcends time, releasing everyone who has ever lived, lives now, or will live in this world from their illusions, and restores all extensions of perfect love to their shared identity and oneness. Last judgment is, I guess that is the second coming, or results of the second coming. We're united with the true selves of others. Yeah.
As I wake up to my true self and this awareness, the last judgment on the world comes closer and closer. So every time I say the world isn't real, I'm letting this go, I'm bringing the time when I'm finally ready to let it all go. Say, okay, it's all unreal, I'm letting it all go. That's the last judgment that comes closer. So each little forgiveness, each little bit of letting go is part of the whole process of letting go. That eventually will lead to, okay, I've let it all go, all my illusions have disappeared, and I'm back in truth. I'm just back in this awareness. And at that point, you would probably drop the body. The body's not needed anymore. So you just let it go and go back into the incorporeal, pure formless awareness of perfect love, which would then be perfect enlightenment. And you wouldn't need to come back because you've let it all go. So why would you come back and revisit all of the ego's thought system when you really have let it all go? You wouldn't. Okay, and the third one, pray for the second coming to come soon.
Pray for the second coming to come soon. But it requires my active participation. It needs my eyes, ears, hands, voice, and above all, my willingness. As I join my companions in innocent awareness, we extend perfect love together and reach our source through this shared identity. In this oneness, pure formless awareness of perfect love extends to its one extension in eternal joy. So while we wanted to come sooner, and while we're in this perception, we need to change that to the true perception for our senses, but most of all, about being willing, wanting to let go of the perception. And we join our companions, or like extensions of
This is
perfect
where,
love.
you were talking about the higher purpose and what you here to do. He's saying, okay, it requires my active participation. It needs my eyes, ears, hands, voice, above all my willingness. I'm going to use my body in service of this at-one-ment process. And that's to live an inspired life if you do that. The love that you are is going to extend through you and inspire you to use your eyes and ears and hands and voice and all of your will to serve it. And that's a truly inspired life. That's an awakened life that's lived to the full. And you'll be in a flow state. Your experiences will be happier, more peaceful, more joyful. It's about the best you can do. There's no higher way to live than living in an inspired way. So then, just to summarize, my true self second coming corrects all mistakes.
A true self second coming corrects all mistakes, restores oneness, and releases everyone from their illusions. It prepares the way for the last judgment and requires my willingness to let go and extend perfect love without making exceptions. In the perfect oneness, all sentient beings are restored to our source, whose pure formless awareness of perfect love extends to all of us in eternal joy.
Yeah.
The second coming, as we all show our willingness to restore to joy and love and our source.
Yeah. So it's just another term that he uses. It's in Christian terminology, so that's why he mentions it, just to explain this process. There's many names for it. It's nothing unusual. In this passage, he's called it the second coming. It's healing. It's at-one-ment. It's enlightenment. It's forgiveness. It's letting go. It's Christ's vision. It's true perceptions. It's all the same. These are just terminology for the same process. And then he's just using the term to teach us again. I also corrects him as perception. A lot of people think, traditional Christians think the second coming is Jesus going to come back down to earth. He's going to be reincarnated or suddenly appear in the Revelation has all these sort of mystical, quite fantastic conceptions of how he'll come on a cloud of glory and chariots, and he'll have a flaming sword, and he's going to slay all the sinners, and it's all just imagining. That this came out of the imagination of the writer John. Some say he might have been taking hallucinogenics at the time. Who knows? But it was obviously stuff going on in his own mind that he then wrote down. So that's not the second coming. He's saying that the second coming is actually just this process of awakening the mind, and that's happening all the time, particularly since the Course came. This could be called, I suppose, the closest thing we're going to get to, okay, that's the second coming. It's the coming again of Yeshua's message into the world through this Course in Miracles, in a way that can help people to learn it, and that doesn't rely on a personality. I mean, imagine if you really did come down in person, said, oh, here I am again. I'm Jesus, and it just wouldn't go. I mean, what would people say and do? It wouldn't work. It'd be like, okay, well, are you genuine? Are you real? Are you a fraud? Where did you come from? Most people would say you're an imposter. People have claimed to be Jesus before, and most people just go, he's in the Looney Tune. So that's clearly not going to work, right? Coming back physically, he's already done that. So instead, he gives us the teaching. He says, all right, well, I don't need to come back physically. I'll just use someone to scribe it, to write down my words, and get it, published into a book so that everyone can read, and study and learn my teachings in a way that's easier than it was for his disciples 2,000 years ago, because they didn't have a book. They didn't have an instruction manual. They just had his verbal teachings, which they didn't, fully understand. So we're very fortunate to be in the first lifetime where this course has been available. Course was finally finished in 1972. Three, actually, the year I was born. So okay, I couldn't have done it in a previous life. This is it. Here it is, and are you going to use it or not for your own awakening? That's the question. So we all have that choice, and there are other teachings and there are other ways, no doubt, but it's a very, very clear, and not uncompromising way out of the dream, which is why I love it. So okay, there's no confusion really. There's no compromise. It's very clear. You've just got to do it. Not easy to do, but at least you're not, in any doubt about what you need to do. So many other paths, it's like, well, it's a bit of this and a bit of that, and you do a bit of this and that'll be good, and you do some of that, and then they tell you that's going to awaken you, but it's a bit too dualistic. It's a bit compromising. Whereas this doesn't compromise. Look, it's one or the other. You've got to choose God and heaven and Christ or you choose the ego and this world, and the two will never meet. These are opposite realities and choices. All right, so
Yeah.
let's go into the lesson then, shall we? So
Yes. Like I say, it might be clear, it's not easy. Because sometimes it's not always clear what the
no,
lesson.
no, you know, the more you practice it, the more you study it, the more you practice it, the clearer it becomes. That's the beauty of it. Now, if I think back to when I started the course nearly 20 years ago, 18 years ago, I think, you know, I didn't really have much of an idea, to be honest. It was like you're reading the
I'm
language
sure.
and
Yeah.
you're reading the language and you know some of the concepts make sense and but I didn't
Mm.
really get it. I mean, if I'm honest with myself, I didn't really get it. It was just like, oh, there's something here, and my ego sort of latched onto it and said, oh, you know, you can now be very clever and you can teach this, and I could teach it to a point, and you know, I could give people maybe some help, guidance, and help, but I didn't really understand it myself. So obviously, my teaching was fairly limited at that point, but it was a start. So, okay, well, you know, you start practicing this, you start learning this, and then you know, 10 years later, then I was like, okay, this has actually got to be applied to my life situation now. It's extremely challenging, and that's what it's about. It's not about teaching it, and yeah, that's I'd done that. I'd done that, and it was part of the journey. But you know, it's about your own learning of it, really. And that was when I really started to learn it. It took me 10 years to really even start getting it. Going, oh, okay,
Mm.
that's now, you know, these experiences along with the teaching, then it starts to make more sense. So these it's a journey. You know, you're not going to get this straight away. It's just very few people do. Very highly unusual if you say, well, I read it and I just got it like that. Well, you know, if you're already enlightened, then you would, but then you wouldn't even need to read it, would you? Enlightened, this is of course not a course for enlightened beings. They don't need it. It's a course for the unawakened minds who
Mm.
need it to help them on a journey to awaken and to let go of their false self. Okay, so let's have a look at the lesson 305. It is today. So I'll read the original and you just read the alternative. Let's start with the key idea of the lesson, which there is a peace that Christ bestows on us.
There is a peace that Christ bestows on us. My true self
Yeah.
brings peace to everyone.
Yeah, that's the alternative. So that's saying the same thing, but you know, the alternative language maybe just makes it a bit more accessible. My true self brings peace to everyone. It's a bit more understandable, maybe. Um, there is a peace that Christ bestows on us, can be a bit sort of highfalutin. The Christ language turns a lot of people off. So it's just your true self will bring peace to you and to everyone. Okay, so then what does he mean by that? And these lessons just explore it a little bit deeper. And what they're really trying to do here, he's trying to help us have the experience of it, the actual experience of what he's talking about. So Christ's peace. So the lessons are in part 2 of the workbook are very brief. There's a couple of paragraphs. That's it. Very, very short little pointers in the sutra tradition of ancient India. Just a short phrase, a sentence or two, a paragraph that just points you to the truth. And then it's like, okay, that's enough. And I just contemplate that, and that takes me into an experience of that truth. So that's what he's trying to do here. So very contemplative, meditative kind of practice, which is why I always try to do a meditation to end the session. So who uses but Christ's vision finds a peace so deep and quiet, undisturbable and wholly changeless, that the world contains no counterpart.
Whoever uses only their true self's vision finds a peace so deep and quiet, indisturbable, and wholly changeless, that the world contains no counterpart.
Comparisons are still before this peace.
Comparisons to this peace are meaningless.
And all the world departs in silence as this peace envelops it and gently carries it to truth, no more to be the home of fear.
And the world departs in silence as this peace envelopes it and gently reveals the truth, no more to be the home of fear.
For love has come and healed the world by giving it Christ's peace.
For love has come and healed the world by bringing it my true self's peace.
And then read it from the top in the alternative.
Whoever uses only their true self's vision finds a peace so deep and quiet, undisturbable, and wholly changeless that the world contains no counterpart. Comparisons to this peace are meaningless, and the world departs in silence as this peace envelopes it and gently reveals the truth, no more to be the home of fear. For love has come and healed the world by bringing it my true self's peace. So being a true self, the vision in this world, you'll have this peace that is so quiet and changeless. It doesn't shift. It remains. Comparisons of anything else doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
There's no fear anymore.
It's another kind of
There's
experience.
peace.
And takes you into another kind of experience. In the manual for teachers recently talked about peace as an experience that's completely different from anything before. Because it's another reality that you're touching. Oh, wow, like I didn't even know this existed. In the ego, that peace is banished from your mind. And in this deep peace, you experience a glimpse, a taste of the other reality. It's completely peaceful. There's nothing to disturb your peace there at all. Love has come and healed the world by bringing it my true self's peace. And so that peace that you feel then extends from you to the world. People might say, well, that doesn't heal the whole world because many people are still not at peace. But you are doing your part. All you can do is change your mind. So you're doing your part and you're contributing to peace. As we know, as within, so without. So the story of the meditators it's about 4,000 meditators who meditated for several weeks in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 1992. And they did some research on the crime levels in the city. They asked the police department for the crime stats compared with previous years, and the crime rate, for some mysterious reason that the cops couldn't figure out, dropped by 25% over the time period of the conference. And these 4,000 advanced transcendental meditators were meditating for hours every day together in the city. Well, is that a coincidence? They couldn't explain it. There was no other reason. There was nothing that seemed to explain why it would suddenly drop by 25%. And so, logically, you go, well, what was different that year? The one thing that was different, that was very much about peace, was there was a transcendental meditation conference going on with a lot of people attending, meditating in these states of deep peace for for hours every day, and that maybe made the difference. Now the skeptics and the scientific materialists will go, oh, how could it? Because they don't understand that everything is mind, everything's connected in mind. So if those people are in that area, that's going to influence the group mind on quite a profound level. So people feel more peaceful, they feel calmer instead of going out and doing something harmful like crime.
Mm.
They don't. It changes thoughts, it changes emotions, it changes actions and behavior. And then, that's happens across hundreds of thousands or millions of people in Washington, D.C., then that drops the crime rate by 25%. And they see the measurable effect. So they don't understand then the integral nature of life, which is explained in this diagram. If you look at an integral model would predict this. It says, well, your subjective interior experience of your thoughts, your emotions, your states of mind is going to be reflected in the objective exterior, in the body, in behavior. That's on the individual level. But if this happens on a group level, so a shared experience of peace, these meditators that meditate for hours every day, sharing this deeply peaceful experience, that influenced the whole the collective, the whole society of that city had a measurable change because of what was going on internally in the collective mind. From an integral perspective, you understand the integral model, that makes complete sense. The scientific materialists who believe only in the material world go, that's crazy. You're in cloud cuckoo land, because this world and the internal world are not connected. In fact, at the extreme, they don't even believe you have a mind. They just think, well, you're a bunch of random brain cells and cells in your body, and consciousness is an accident of brain function. And when the body dies and consciousness dies, and it's a bizarre belief system. But that then wouldn't acknowledge that this is even possible. Except that the problem with that theory is that you see these effects time and time again in experiments. They go, well, evidently there's evidence to show that it is possible. So good science just looks at all the evidence objectively and says, well, okay, we've got to then take into account that. And if our theory doesn't match the evidence, then we have to have a better theory. Maybe our theory is not correct. That's good science.
Mm.
Not, oh, okay, we're just not going to believe it. We'll just deny that evidence because it's not convenient for our dogma. What Rupert Sheldrake says, criticizes as the scientific materialist paradigm, saying this is the new world religion, and it's a dogma. They don't want to accept anything else, so they deny any evidence to the contrary. Things like that kind of experiment and all kinds of mind type of stuff, telekinesis,
Quantum
telepathy.
jumping.
Yeah, and so on. Or, all of that
Quantum
is then,
jumping.
that can't happen. But hang on, there's evidence
Mm.
that it does happen. A lot of evidence. Rupert Sheldrake has done many, many experiments on, showing that these things do happen, and far more than randomly, with a much higher, probability, doing statistical, scientific tests, statistical probability analysis. The scientific method then is their own method is then saying, well, hang on, your theory is not correct. But the dogmatic approach to science is, no, our science must be correct. So we then have to discard the evidence. And he's saying that's not good science. Good science should take all the evidence into account and then say, we need a theory that explains that. Which is why he then accuses science of being a dogma, a new religion. That's nothing different from, old style religions, which were based on faith. Oh, we just believe because we say so. Well, okay, you're not taking the evidence into account and actually denying your own scientific method, then you're in the dogmatic category. Anyway, so that was just a story about peace and yeah, the joy that inevitably brings, and hopefully can see that Christ's peace, or true self's peace, can come to everyone. Your own mind can, has an influence on the collective. There's no doubt. Okay, so Father, next paragraph is just a short one. Father, the peace of Christ is given us because it is your will that we be saved.
Father, the peace of Christ is given us because it is
Right.
your, oh, sorry,
Just read
my
the narrative,
source.
yeah.
My source, the peace of my true self is given me to me because it is through your awareness that I am awakened.
Help us today but to accept your gift and judge it not.
Help me today to accept only your gift and not judge it.
For it has come to us to save us from our judgment on ourselves.
For it has come to me to free me from my judgment of myself.
Hmm. So then from the top, an alternative.
My source, the peace of my true self is given to me because it is through your awareness that I am awakened. Help me today to accept only your gift and not judge it. For it has come to me to free me from my judgment of myself.
So what's he saying there in summary?
So the peace has come is because my true, I'm awakened because that's who I am, my true self. So
Yeah.
if I accept the love of pure formless awareness, and I'm
So
not
peace
judging
is
myself,
a
then I
consequence of
guess,
awakening. When you awaken to your true self, then you will feel more peaceful. And then naturally judgment starts to fade away. Judgment and peace are antithetical. If you judge and you condemn others, you won't feel peaceful. That's guaranteed. So who are you really judging then? You're actually judging and condemning your own true self. You're denying that self through your condemnation, your judgment of others. So let go of the judgment, more peace arises, and you connect more with your true self. And the more you connect with your true self, the more peace you experience, and so it goes. Until eventually that leads to a complete awakening that's shown here in the Holy Trinity diagram, where God takes the final step. You just merge back in here. So identified so fully with your true self, the peace is so deep that this awareness is really there. You're not going anywhere. It's just it's your fundamental awareness. And then you've just merged back into that. And then there's no need for the Christ, the true self, because that's still conceptual. It's the highest self-concept you can have in this world, but it's still conceptual. There's only this awareness. There's no need for the Holy Spirit and true perception because the world fades away and perception is not required anymore. So you don't need the Holy Spirit or remembrance of perfect love to interpret perception for you anymore. So they've served their purpose, and then they just fade away and disappear into God. And they take you back into the state of pure formless awareness and perfect love as God, and that's their only function. So that understanding is a very different understanding from the normal, theological understanding of the Holy Trinity, that these are the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But they're all equally real, and they're all, they will carry on eternally. No, the true self and the Holy Spirit will disappear ultimately into God because they won't be needed anymore. You only need them in a dream world. Well, once the dream world has been transcended and has disappeared, then they disappear with it. So everything below this level one, is illusion. Even the true self and its true perceptions. They're useful illusions because they free your mind from all the other illusions. But they're not ultimately true. So they just fade away. And all of this collapses, and what you're left with is just the blue. And that's all there is. Just God or heaven, this perfect oneness, this pure formless awareness of perfect love. Brahman, they call it in the East. nirvana. There's many names for it. It's a transcendent absolute reality, which is really purely experiential. And in this awareness, you don't need dogma, you don't need concepts, you don't even need to think really. It's just a pure formless awareness of perfect love that simply is. God is, and then we cease to speak, says Yeshua in the course to try and explain it. And this is naturally deeply peaceful. So the more you go into the true self, the more peaceful you'll feel, and the more you'll go into the ultimate peace of God that surpasses all understanding, which is this awareness in which everything is complete and perfect, and nothing can disturb your peace then when you're in this state. Okay, so another reminder, another good lesson. It's just after 11 your time, so happy to do a meditation for you if you want to close it out and prepare you for bed, or you can
You can just
go on your way.
meditate in the lesson. I know.
Yeah,
But that's
meditate on the
right.
lesson.
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right, let's do that then.
My eyes are struggling to keep open.
Yeah, well, you can just kind of use it as a preparation for bed. And just drift into. It won't be really deep. It'll be 15 to 20 minutes. So.
Okay.
All right, so let's do a meditation on today's lesson 305. So just making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight. You cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. And breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pause at the top of the inhale. So just scan your mind and notice any thoughts, any emotions going on, particularly anything that feels at all negative, negative, of love, of peace, of joy. So if there's any anger, a minor irritation, some fear, some sadness, apathy, whatever, just notice it, breathe in, notice it. In this awareness of your true self, and remind yourself that there is a peace that Christ bestows on us, or we prefer the alternative version. My true self brings peace to everyone. So breathe that peace into every pore and every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. Just in peace of perfect love. Let that peace infuse into every pore, every cell, every muscle, the deepest level of your being. Connect with it. Breathe it in. And in the presence of this peace, realize that anything other than that peace must go. Some little bit of irritation, some fear, depression, sadness, anger, pain, and suffering in any form must go in this peace. Feel this transcendent, peaceful awareness. comes from your true self's vision. Yeshua says, whoever uses only their true self's vision finds a peace so deep and quiet, undisturbable, and wholly changeless that the world contains no counterpart. And when you let go of that peace, and you let go of that, anything that blocks that peace, just exhale, blow it all out. The breeze of your breath to the nothingness that it really is. Comparisons to this peace are meaningless. And the world departs in silence as this peace envelops it and gently reveals the truth. No more to be the home of fear. So just sink into this peace. It has no comparison. It has no opposite. Love has come and healed the world by bringing it my true self's peace. And breathe this peace in to every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body. Every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. In this peaceful awareness. And say this prayer just to invite this peace to the deepest part of your mind, your heart, your being. And my source, peace of my true self is given to me. Because it's through your awareness that I am awakened. Help me today to accept only your gift and not judge it. Gift of this peace. For it has come to free me from my judgment of myself. And so just rest in peace. There's nothing else to do. There's nowhere else to go. Nothing else to think about the next few minutes. Just rest in the peace of God and peace of perfect love. Observe the breath, breathing in and out through your nose. Focus on that to quiet your mind. And just drift into this peace. Let it arise, sink into it, let it wash over you, let it envelop you. Whatever language you want to use, it's just almost emerging into a deeply peaceful state that awaits all of us in the end. So just rest in this deep peace and silence for a few minutes and enjoy it. The next few minutes of deep silence. Just gently coming back into an awareness of your body, the breath, senses, and the world. But you retain this deeply peaceful awareness. It hasn't really gone anywhere, it's still there. It's just staying rooted in this awareness while you still perceive the senses. So you're going to gradually bring yourself back to sense perceptions in this world on the count of 3. 1, just breathing in, noticing the breath flowing in to your nostrils. Subtle flow of air into the nostrils. Feel the energy rise up the spine. You clench your sphincter muscle. Notice all of these sensations. Draw the energy up into the crown of your head. Pause at the top of the inhale. And scan your mind. So just notice thoughts, emotions, related body sensations going on. Particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting. And just exhale and blow it all out. And it's like a dark cloud or black smoke leaving you out of your mouth, out of your body, out of your energy system. It's going, gone. We'll start there, stomach in. Count of 2, just notice the weight of your body, pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Noticing what you're feeling with your hands touching. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. Notice that. What you're smelling as you breathe in again. Notice all these subtle sensations from some very quiet, calm, equanimous mind. It's not judging any of them, it's just aware of them without judgment. So you're going to set the intention to stay connected to this equanimous, peaceful awareness for the rest of the evening, to carry you into a deep sleep and then on into tomorrow and the rest of the week. And so it is said, and so it is done. And now on the count of 3, you open your eyes. So just taking a minute to look around, ground yourself back into the so-called reality of the world. Noticing what's around you, looking at any object. And notice that your peace is still there, it hasn't disappeared. You're seeing the object, you look at another object, you see that object too. But so what? They're there on one level in your perception, but on another, you're still deeply peaceful. So you can close your eyes briefly and you just connect with that peace, and then you open your eyes. Notice when your eyes open, the peace doesn't go. Peace is still there. Your underlying fundamental awareness is the same. Will always be the same. That is the Christ, the true self in you, which brings you only peace, as today's lesson says, and brings everyone only peace. So that's what I wish for you for the rest of the evening. And yeah, if I don't see you before Christmas, Kim, then I hope you have a really relaxing, peaceful one.
Thank you, Jono. Yeah, I hope you do as well. Travel safe and just, yeah, have a be joyful, peaceful Christmas and time with your family.
Yeah, no, I'm setting that intention. It's just like downtime. I've had a bit of, as you know, a bit of stressy stuff in the work environment, and
Yes, yes,
just
yeah.
okay,
I just need to let
I said to the
go.
guys, I'm just timing out. It's like after the 23rd, between the 23rd and the 2nd of January. That's it. I'm not
Yeah,
available because
yeah,
otherwise it just encroaches. And like, okay, well,
I
you've got to do
see.
this and you've got to look at this agreement. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
no, I did that last year and I'm not allowing it again because
Mm,
well, it's just not kind to my family and people I'm going to be with
mm,
there, my wife's family. So it's about staying in that, yeah, integrity, I guess. So yeah, it's
mm.
going to be good, a
Good.
good learn
Yeah.
and yeah, rest. I think this is a time for rest. You know, field that is rested yields a good crop. That's a quote from Ovid, which I usually send out over the festive season. Um, it's uh, it's a crop that's rested. You know, when you rest well, then you feel re-energized and refreshed for the next year. If you don't, then you know you're still in the same unrested, maybe slightly stressed state. So it's a huge value in it. It's just having the discipline. It's kind of funny in this world. We have to have a discipline to rest, but we do because it's very easy to get caught up in activity.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean that's Christmas is a time where fortunately the world gives you permission to do that. It's okay, you can rest. Generally have a week and just
mm,
not have to do stuff because everyone agrees. Let's just time out for a bit. So yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, so I probably won't see you. We've got another session tomorrow afternoon, and then that'll be it probably
mm,
until probably not next week. I might be able to run one at the end of next week, Thursday or Friday. But otherwise it'll be the following week. So
yeah, yeah, just take a rest, John.
yeah, I'll still
Mm,
send the material out.
yeah.
Uh, but in terms of live sessions and stuff, that's it. Maybe for the rest of the year, actually. I'll see if I can squeeze one in somewhere between Christmas
Mm,
and New Year. And no, actually, we'll do one tomorrow. So there's one tomorrow, and then that'll be it. All
mm.
right. So it's late. And you're looking tired.
Okay.
Ready for bed. Hope that
Right,
meditation
yeah, like need a,
helped.
I've still got a lot to do tomorrow and that. So
Yeah.
just, yeah, so I just need to sleep
Mm.
so I can really, yeah.
All right.
Thanks, and I apologize for
Well,
starting very late. I was just to finish something to get out, and I just needed a bit of extra. I actually just needed to eat something, otherwise my stomach was going
mm,
to
yeah.
tense
Okay.
up, and I would have
It's
been
fine. Yeah, it's fine.
uncomfortable section. Yeah.
No problem. All
Okay.
right. See
Namaste.
you,
And I
maybe
thank
next
you.
year. Good Christmas, New
Yeah.
Year.
A happy Christmas and a
Peace.
peaceful one
Blessings to
and
you.
enjoy. Yes.
All right. Namaste.
So, namaste, Jono. Thank
And
you.
wish Leland a Merry Christmas and
Oh, well, oh, thank you.
good
And
wishes for the festive
Deborah
season.
as well. Yeah.
Mm,
Gabriel, enjoy.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Bye
Bye,
for now.
Jono. Bye.
All right. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you to Kim for joining, making the session more than a monologue. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, why not subscribe to the channel if you already haven't? You can also go to lifebuild.com. You can see the spelling of that in the background. Type that into your browser and um, just can sign up to receive a daily inspirational quote. I showed you an example of that earlier in the session with some teaching around that. There's usually a bit of commentary, maybe some other quotes that I bring in. It's a theme for the day that leads you into the daily lesson coming from A Course in Miracles. There's also some text reading from either the text or the Manual for Teachers. We do the supplements as well in the original alternative form language that you saw us discussing tonight, read and discuss in the document I shared on my screen. So you can get all of that, as well as notifications of live sessions, and some meditations that I send out as well via Telegram to help you practice the lesson in a short and longer form. So, you know, a lot of value, a lot of free stuff to help you practice and really deepen your understanding and experience of this profound course and awaken to your true self, which is what it's all about. So head over to lifepole.com and sign up there. And yeah, if you would like to join us in one of these live sessions, you'll also be notified about the live sessions in the Telegram group. So we're pretty much wrapping up for the year, but next year we're starting again. So join us, and in February we start the whole 1-year program again. So watch this space. I'll be posting some videos. We'll be doing some webinars and stuff to talk about that in January. Okay, so hope to connect with you on the inside of the Telegram group. You will need to download, install Telegram on your mobile device to access the group. So make sure you do that if you sign up, and hope to see you on the inside of one of these sessions soon. Thanks for watching or listening, and yeah, namaste, which means the true self in me acknowledges and honors that same true self in you.